Imagine a vast empire stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the Persian Gulf, from the snowy peaks of Siberia to the banks of the Danube River. This was the Mongol Empire, history's largest contiguous land empire. But how did it all begin? In this video, we'll travel back to 1206, to the windswept steppes of Central Asia, where one man, Genghis Khan, united warring tribes and set the stage for a conquest that would forever change the world. Join us as we uncover the epic origins of the Mongol Empire. The year 1206 marks a pivotal moment in history, the dawn of the Mongol Empire. On the banks of the Anon River, Temujin, the son of Yeshugei, was declared Genghis Khan, uniting a powerful federation of tribes. This coalition was remarkable not only for including Mongol-speaking tribes, but also for bringing together various Turkic groups under one banner. Before this defining year, Genghis Khan was just one of many tribal leaders vying for control over the vast steppes south and southeast of Lake Baikal. However, his decisive victories over the Karait and Nayman Turks solidified his dominance, granting him unparalleled authority over what we now know as Mongolia. What followed was nothing short of extraordinary, a series of ambitious and simultaneous campaigns that would set the stage for one of history's most transformative empires. Between 1205 and 1209, the Mongols launched their first major campaign against the Tangut Kingdom of Xia, a border state of China in the northwest. This initial offensive ended with the Xia king pledging allegiance to Genghis Khan. With this victory secured, the Mongols turned their attention to northern China, then under the control of the Jin dynasty. In 1215, Beijing fell to the Mongols, marking a monumental shift in power as they claimed all territory north of the Yellow River. Over the next few years, the Jin dynasty was reduced to a buffer state between the Mongols and the Chinese Song Empire to the south. Meanwhile, Mongol ambitions extended westward. By 1218, the Karachitai state in eastern Turkestan was absorbed into the growing empire. However, conflict with the Crimean Sultanate erupted in 1219 after the assassination of Genghis Khan's Muslim subjects in Utrar. This led to a devastating campaign across West Turkestan, modern-day Central Asia, with the Mongols sacking major cities like Bukhara, Samarkand, and Urgench between 1220 and 1221. Mongol forces even crossed the Caucasus and raided cities in Crimea in 1223. The once flourishing Krym region was left in ruins, its irrigation systems destroyed, and its agricultural base shattered for centuries. The Mongols' relentless drive continued against Xia in 1226 to 1227, after the kingdom refused to assist in the Krym campaign. The Xia culture, a unique blend of Chinese and Tibetan influences with Buddhism at its core, was almost entirely wiped out during this punitive expedition. Genghis Khan's death during the campaign in 1227 only fueled the Mongols' vengeance, leaving Xia's legacy obliterated in the wake of their wrath. By 1227, the Mongol dominion stretched across an incredible expanse, from the Caspian Sea to the China Seas. To the north, they bordered the sparse forests of Siberia, while to the south, their reach extended to the Pamirs, Tibet, and China's central plains. This vast empire encompassed an astonishing diversity of peoples, religions, and cultures, a patchwork of civilizations united under Mongol rule. But what drove this unprecedented expansion? At its heart lies the deep-seated tension between the nomadic steppe dwellers and the settled agricultural societies that bordered them. Raids by nomads were nothing new. They had occurred throughout history whenever powerful tribes neighbored settled populations. Yet, the scale and ambition of Genghis Khan's conquests were something entirely different. These were not mere raids. They were a determined bid for world domination. The belief in a divine mission to rule the world was deeply ingrained in Genghis Khan's vision and that of many of his successors. However, this ideological imperialism wasn't rooted in the traditions of nomadic society itself. Instead, it likely drew inspiration from China, where the concept of one world, one ruler had a long and influential history. The rise of nomadic empires, coupled with their ambitions to dominate the settled regions of Central Asia and beyond, may also have been fueled by practical motivations. Chief among these was the desire to control the lucrative intercontinental trade routes, particularly the Silk Road. The allure of plunder cannot be overlooked either. It is no coincidence that early nomadic campaigns often targeted states thriving from trade route dominance. This blend of ideological ambition, economic strategy, and opportunism drove the Mongols to transform their vision into a world-changing reality. The extraordinary military success of the Mongols under Genghis Khan and his successors wasn't due to sheer numbers. It was their superior strategy and tactics that set them apart. Their armies, composed primarily of highly mobile and swift cavalry, could outmaneuver opponents with remarkable precision. Coordinated movements were directed through signals and a highly efficient messenger system, ensuring seamless communication on the battlefield. Armed with deadly bows and arrows, Mongol warriors excelled at disorganizing enemy forces from a distance, resorting to close combat only once their adversaries were in chaos. Their armaments and tactics thrived in open plains and flatlands, where mobility was key, but they adapted impressively when faced with other terrains. For sieges on walled cities, the Mongols enlisted the expertise of artisans and engineers from conquered civilizations, turning their foes' own technological advancements into tools for conquest. This combination of adaptability, precision, and strategic brilliance cemented their dominance on the battlefield. Another key factor behind the overwhelming success of Mongol expeditions was their masterful use of spies and propaganda. Before launching an attack, they often extended an offer of peace and voluntary surrender. If accepted, the population was spared and integrated peacefully. However, resistance was met with brutal consequences, either slaughter or enslavement, while sparing only those with valuable skills or expertise deemed useful to the empire. In cases of surrender, soldiers and tribesmen were frequently absorbed into the Mongol forces, treated as federates and allies. These federates played a crucial role in the Mongol military machine, with their loyalty to the Khan being emphasized over formal treaties. As a result, the Mongol armies were incredibly diverse, often containing only a minority of ethnic Mongols. This strategic blend of persuasion, loyalty, and efficiency created a force that reshaped Asia. During the early stages of Mongol supremacy, the empire forged by Genghis Khan absorbed advanced civilizations with strong, centralized state structures. In contrast, Mongol society was rooted in pastoralism and a decentralized, clan-based system. This stark cultural divide created tension between the small, foreign ruling class and the large, conquered populations. Initially, the Mongols sought to impose their steppe-based social order on their subjects. Entire communities from defeated tribes were enslaved and granted as personal servants to distinguished military leaders, who exploited these groups for labor and resources. Similarly, in newly subjugated territories, large populations were treated as the private property of Mongol commanders, with little regard for pre-existing bureaucratic systems. The Mongol Empire during this phase, lasting until roughly 1234 CE, 7 years after Genghis Khan's death, was characterized by decentralized control, minimal organization, and ruthless exploitation. Power rested with the Khan, supported by military and political advisors, but no structured civil administration existed. The Mongol military hierarchy had no political or administrative equivalent, and the empire was held together through military force rather than cohesive governance. Economically, the empire's early conquests caused significant disruption. The dismantling of organized governments enabled Mongol leaders and their appanage holders to exploit local production heavily. They relied on non-Mongol tax farmers, but the lack of a unified financial system or civil organization hindered economic stability. Military dominance, combined with the independence of local leaders, created a fragmented and unsustainable system. In its early stages, the Mongol Empire was less a unified state and more a vast collection of diverse territories bound together by force. As the Mongol Empire expanded beyond Genghis Khan's conquests, history repeated itself. Newly subjugated regions experienced an initial phase of decentralized military rule, dominated by a nomadic and exploitative approach. However, in territories conquered earlier, efforts were made to establish bureaucratic systems and administrative structures, often modeled on local traditions. This shift aimed to consolidate Mongol rule and ensure long-term stability. Because the Mongols had no original blueprint for governing settled populations, their empire evolved in different ways depending on the region. In many cases, what emerged were not distinctly Mongol empires but rather Chinese, Persian, or Central Asian states ruled by a Mongol dynasty. The degree of Mongol influence varied depending on how deeply embedded local traditions were. For instance, in China, where centralized governance was deeply ingrained, Mongol rule was more stable than in other regions. This lack of a unified state concept was also evident in the way the empire was treated by the ruling clan. Rather than being seen as the personal domain of the Khan, the empire was regarded as the collective inheritance of the imperial family. Even in Genghis Khan's lifetime, the empire was divided among his 4 favored sons. Tolui controlled Mongolia and northern China. Ogadai ruled the western steppes, modern northern Xinjiang, and western Mongolia. Chagatai governed Karakatai, modern northern Iran, and southern Xinjiang. And Joshi, followed by his son Batu, oversaw southwest Siberia and western Turkestan, later known as the Golden Horde. A 5th Mongol Empire emerged when Hulagu, Tolhui's son, conquered Iran, Iraq, and Syria, founding the Ilkhanid dynasty in Persia. From its very foundation, internal divisions threatened the unity of the Mongol Empire. The period following Genghis Khan's death can be divided into 2 distinct phases. An initial era of relative cohesion under a great Khan recognized by all branches of the imperial family, followed by a gradual fragmentation into independent Mongol-ruled states. Eventually, these once-connected realms pursued separate histories, marking the end of a truly unified Mongol Empire. After Genghis Khan's death, a traditional Mongol Kurultai, a general assembly of nobles, was convened to elect the new Great Khan. Although Joshi, the eldest son, had passed away 6 months earlier, the law of primogeniture usually prevailed. However, Chagatai, the next oldest surviving son, was bypassed, and Ogedei was chosen as the new Great Khan in 1229. His reign lasted until 1241. He directed his expansive campaigns. Ogedei relied heavily on trusted advisors, including Yelu Chutsai, who served as his chief counselor, and Qingkai, a Karaite Nestorian Christian who headed the chancery. Contemporary accounts describe Ogedei as a man of a stern temper, energetic yet prone to indulgence, particularly in drinking. Like his father, Ogedei's military campaigns were vast and simultaneous, with independent generals acting in the field, but always following direct orders from the Khan, communicated through an extensive messenger network that spanned nearly all of Asia. One of the key military actions during Ogedei's rule was a war launched against the remnants of the Jukun Jin state in northern China. The Jin emperor, caught between Mongol and Song forces, was in a desperate position. The Jin had taken northern China from the Song in the previous century, but now the Song had allied with the Mongols. In 1234, after a coordinated Mongol-Song attack, the Jin capital of Kaifeng fell, and the last Jin emperor, Aizong, committed suicide, marking the end of the Jin dynasty. The election of a new Great Khan after Ogedei's death was fraught with conflict. Ogedei's widow, Torjin, ruled as regent from 1242 to 1246 and pushed for her son Gayuk's election. However, Batu, Genghis's grandson, opposed her, believing he had a stronger claim due to his descent from Genghis's eldest son. Despite Batu's opposition, Torjin secured Gayuk's election in 1246. Gayuk, influenced by Nestorian Christianity, differed greatly from Batu, who followed traditional Mongol shamanism. Tensions grew, but Gayuk's sudden death in 1248 ended the feud and the possibility of a Christian-dominated Mongol court. After Gayuk's death, his widow Ogul Gamish ruled as regent until 1251, when Batu, now older, stepped aside and convinced the nobles to elect Mongol Khan, the son of Tolui, as Great Khan. This marked the shift of power from the Ogedei branch to the descendants of Genghis's youngest son, leading to growing hostility between the Chagatai and Tolui branches of the family. Mongol Khan, a skilled military leader and benevolent ruler, oversaw a period of prosperity for the Mongol Empire. Under his reign, Karakorum became a bustling, multicultural capital where various religious communities coexisted. European visitors, like the French friar Willem van Rysbroek in 1254, were impressed by the city's diversity. Mongol continued Gayuk's policy of religious tolerance while expanding the empire, with his brothers Hulagu and Kublai playing key roles. In 1255, Hulagu launched a campaign in Iran, defeating the assassin sect and capturing Baghdad in 1258, marking the fall of the Abbasid Caliphate. This shift in power sparked support from Christians and Shias in the region. Hulagu's forces advanced into Syria, taking Damascus and Aleppo by 1259, but their momentum was halted in 1260 by the Mamluk victory at the Battle of Ain Jalut, which blocked further Mongol expansion into Egypt. In the Far East, a successful campaign against China unfolded under the leadership of Kublai Khan. His generals outmaneuvered the Chinese defenses by advancing toward Annam via the southwest, passing through the independent Tai kingdom. Later, Mongol took command in 1257. However, fate intervened once again, halting Mongol operations. Mongol passed away in 1259 while leading a siege in Sichuan, leaving the empire in a state of uncertainty. As was customary, the death of a great Khan triggered an internal power struggle. Kublai, still on campaign, managed to secure his election as the new Great Khan in 1260. Meanwhile, his younger brother Origboj claimed the title in Karakorum. Hulagu, busy with his Syrian campaign and far from the political center, didn't play a direct role in the election but seemed to favor Kublai. Despite the tension, Kublai and Hulagu maintained a friendly relationship, though Kublai's distant dominion meant his authority was largely symbolic at that point. Kublai Khan's accession in 1260 marked a pivotal moment in the history of the Mongol Empire. Though he ruled an empire that spanned from China and Korea to Iran and southern Russia, the vast diversity of the conquered territories became apparent. Kublai, in particular, came to see himself more as a Chinese emperor than a Mongol Khan. This shift was reflected in the broader transformation of the empire. As the Mongol influence began to wane, giving way to the dominance of other cultures, such as Islam and Buddhism. For Kublai, this transition was further emphasized by his decision to move the capital to Beijing in 1260 and begin its rebuilding in 1267. In doing so, Mongolia was no longer the central hub of the empire, not even of Kublai's own realm. Kublai Khan, one of China's greatest emperors, unified the country by conquering the Song dynasty in 1279. Unlike previous rulers, he treated the deposed imperial family with respect and forbade indiscriminate violence. After 1279, no new territories were added to the empire, and attempts to expand into Japan were thwarted by the kamikaze storms in 1274 and 1281. Kublai's grandson, Temur, 1295–1307, maintained Mongol rule, defeating rival Khan Kadu in 1301. However, over time, internal power struggles and court intrigues weakened the Mongol dynasty. Successors, including Tagan Temur, 1333–1368, struggled with growing Chinese cultural influence, and under weak leadership, the empire began to crumble. During Tagan Temur's early reign, power rested with the anti-Chinese minister Bayan, deepening tensions with the Chinese elite. The decline of Mongol power in China, especially during Tagan Temur's reign, was part of the broader cycle of unrest that punctuates Chinese history. Economic hardships were the driving force behind widespread rebellions, particularly in the countryside, where peasants struggled under heavy taxation and corvée duties. The Mongol ruling class failed to connect with the agricultural population, and their disregard for farming issues was reflected in laws that allowed game animals to destroy crops, further alienating the peasants. The largest rebellions were led by figures from lower social strata, salt smugglers, petty officials, monks, and more. The southeastern provinces, particularly Zhejiang, where agriculture thrived, saw the most upheaval, disrupting the vital supply lines to Beijing. By 1351, a failed water conservation project in the Yellow River region further exacerbated tensions. Notably, these rebellions initially weren't driven by nationalist sentiment, but by anger at the upper classes, both Mongol and Chinese. Over time, however, more educated Chinese joined the cause, helping to shape the rebel strategies and bringing the Mongols closer to collapse. The most remarkable of the rebel leaders was Zhu Changba, a former monk born to poor peasants. His energy, patience, and military skill set him apart from his rivals, allowing him to establish himself in key economic regions and eliminate opposition. In 1368, Zhu succeeded in driving the Mongols out of Beijing and declared himself emperor of the new Ming dynasty, taking the name Honggu. By 1359, with the support of capable generals, he had consolidated control over northern China, although resistance in the southwest lingered until the 1370s. The last Mongol emperor, Tagan Temur, fled to the steppes, where he died in 1370. Thus ended over a century of Mongol rule in China. However, their defeat was not due to weakness or corruption from Chinese culture, as the Mongols retained their military strength and continued to pose a threat to the northwest. This potential danger likely influenced Honggu's decision to establish his capital in Nanjing, away from the frontier. Zhu Changba's rise to power also marked a shift in political and economic dominance. Foreigners, including Mongols and other non-Mongol traders and officials, lost their influence. Many assimilated into Chinese society, changing their family names, while foreign religions like Islam and Christianity lost their privileges, with Christianity ultimately being eradicated due to rising nationalism. The Mongol Empire had a profound impact, not only through the destruction of civilizations like Krem and Xia, but also in shaping the social, ethnic, and linguistic landscapes of the regions they conquered. Despite the initial devastation, the Mongol Empire fostered a unique period of East-West exchange, promoting cultural and material transfers that enriched both sides. During the 13th and 14th centuries, Europe and Asia experienced their closest commercial and cultural connections to date. This period also set the stage for the age of maritime exploration in Europe, inspired by the accounts of travelers like Marco Polo, who chronicled their journeys through the Mongol realms and the wonders of the East. As always, if you like this video, don't be afraid to hit like and subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you want a video on a specific historical topic.